In remote, unexplored corners of the planet, inhabit completely isolated tribes, oblivious to the existence of the modern world. Over millennia, these people have developed extraordinary abilities that science has yet to decipher. In an episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, explorers recounted a curious sight. One of them, trying to escape danger, dove into the water and crawled like a turtle. A moment as unusual as the accounts of these enigmatic tribes. It's estimated that more than 100 unknown indigenous groups live scattered throughout the Amazon rainforest. Joe Rogan delves into the curious details of these nearly unbelievable abilities, focusing specifically on 9 tribes that seem to ignore the laws of physics. One of them stands out for being able to hold its breath underwater longer than any other known person. Today, with the help of technology, divers can reach great depths, but these communities do so solely with their own bodies. However, there is a group that has never seen this type of equipment, and yet can easily stay underwater for up to 4 minutes. Meet the Moken people, a group with no fixed home. They originally migrated from southern China and now inhabit islands and villages far from the mainland of Thailand and Myanmar. Today, they are widely known as sea gypsies, mainly because their entire lives revolve around the ocean. They live by fishing, gathering food at sea, and living on boats called cabangs, which are often isolated from the mainland. However, this special gift is both a blessing and a curse. Because of their unique characteristics, the Moken people face discrimination from the Thai mainland. But despite the persecution, these tribes continue to thrive, spending time with their families and fishing in the open sea. After all, their entire existence is linked to water. They have a vast knowledge of the sea and live exclusively from fishing and gathering natural resources from the coast. Even when they need items like fuel or food like rice, they simply trade their catch with outsiders. This is the only time they have contact with the outside world. But what's most fascinating about this tribe is the story of its children. Moken's diet consists primarily of fish. To obtain their daily food, the tribe's young men practice free diving, without any equipment. Over time, their bodies have evolved. Today, they can hold their breath for up to 4 minutes, while the average person can hold their breath for between 30 and 90 seconds. Furthermore, the tribe has developed surprisingly keen underwater vision. Moken children spend much of their day in the water, diving for seafood. This skill isn't limited to the most experienced members of the tribe. In fact, anyone can learn it with a little practice. Once the world learned of these exceptional divers, word spread quickly. And long before scientists invaded the Moken's territory, in search of the secrets behind their extraordinary vision. In 1999, Anna Gislin of Lund University traveled to the tribe as part of a special research program. Accompanied by her daughter, she traveled to Thailand to study these extraordinary people up close. Whenever the tide came in, the Moken children would dive into the water, diving for food that was meters below what she and her daughter could see. They kept their eyes wide open, catching clams, shells, and sea cucumbers without any difficulty, Gislin reported. Gislin concluded that, to see so well underwater, the Moken children either developed an adaptation that altered how their eyes function, or they learned to use them differently in the underwater environment. Hadza tribe. Speaking of special abilities, have you ever heard of the tribe whose skin is so tough they feel no pain? That's the Hadza tribe. Imagine a group of people so fearless they eat honeycombs like snacks, with the bees still inside. They live just south of the equator, between the salty waters of Lake Ayazi in Tanzania and the natural walls of the Great Rift Valley. With a population of approximately 1,300, the Hadza are recognized as one of Africa's last hunter-gatherer tribes. The tribesmen hunt with handmade bows and arrows. The bowstrings are made from animal tendons. The wooden arrows are tipped with stones and always poisoned with toxins extracted from tree bark. Any prey struck does not survive. If an arrow brings down an animal, the bow is adorned with the prey's skin. For the Hadza, hunting is a way of life. They go out every day in search of food, preparing and eating their catch right there, without needing to return to camp. Often, most of the meat goes to the hunters, with the rest divided among the other members. Because food is abundant in the forest where they live, they never save anything for the next day. They only hunt enough to feed themselves that day, and then begin their search again the next day. The Hadza's diet isn't limited to meat. They also consume tubers, baobab fruits, wild berries, and especially honey. But what's most striking is how they gather this honey. In the forest, hives are located high atop thick baobab trunks and are protected by aggressive bees. Therefore, the honey is difficult to access. Even so, the Hadza devour the honeycombs without fear. This is because, after years of living in the forest, their skin has become so thick that bee stings don't bother them. And that's not all. The Hadza have also developed a special ability to communicate with birds. When it's time to gather honey, they whistle and make specific sounds to call the birds. These birds then guide them to the hives, fluttering and showing the way. The tribe members smoke the bees with a fire to collect the honey. What's left, such as wax and scraps, is left for the birds to eat. Some say they've developed such a powerful immune system that it neutralizes the effects of bee venom, making them immune to pain or allergic reactions. While impressive, this still pales in comparison to the Māori tribe's superhuman strength. Māori tribe. Originating from eastern Polynesia, the Māori arrived in New Zealand in successive waves of canoe voyages between 1320 and 1350. For centuries, this indigenous tribe occupied New Zealand territory. Their distinctive costumes express their cultural heritage, reflecting a deep connection to the land and ancestral spirits. Their canoes carried not just people, but a collective spirit. Over time, different tribes emerged, such as the Iwi and Hapu, each with their own identity and traditions. The Māori are especially known for their rich culture, expressed through language, art, music, and dance. One of the most iconic aspects of this culture is the traditional war dance, the haka, of enormous cultural significance. The haka is performed with powerful, synchronized movements, combined with vocal chants that are difficult to imitate. The tribe's members are so strong that they are considered one of the most naturally fit people on the planet. Another highlight is the intense facial expressions made during the dance, which convey emotions, communicate messages, and welcome visitors. It symbolizes unity, strength, and resilience for the Māori. But what's most interesting is the reputation they cultivated over the years as fearsome warriors. With striking body paint, Māori men and women easily commanded respect and fear from their enemies. They were among the most dangerous fighters the British ever faced. During the confrontations, they demonstrated a strict code of combat and a long tradition of warfare. Learning the art of war begins early. From childhood, they learn to handle their traditional weapons, fighting techniques, and the iconic haka. When they reach adulthood, they are ready to defend their tribe. Despite facing numerous challenges, including colonization and attempts at cultural assimilation, the Māori have managed to preserve their identity. Today, their culture is an essential part of New Zealand society. Māori body painting was creepy. Wait until you meet the tribe that literally walks around looking like walking skeletons. In the heart of Mindima, in the Simbu province of Papua New Guinea, lies a community with a rich and captivating history. Skeleton tribe. Their culture is ingrained with unique practices and traditions passed down from generation to generation. The skeleton tribe's origins lie in an intriguing story. About 200 years ago, a large group of hunters set out on an expedition into the mountains, but unfortunately, they never returned. This mysterious disappearance caused alarm among the villagers. In response to the incident, a group of brave warriors descended the mountain to investigate the truth. They eventually found a cave full of skeletons. Although small on the outside, upon entering, the men encountered a giant monster. Trying to escape, they hid in rock crevices, but they couldn't stay hidden for long. Whenever they emerged, the monster devoured them mercilessly. So, to trick the creature, they decided to paint their bodies with bone patterns using white and black clay. This way, they would appear to be part of the skeletons scattered across the ground, blending in with the fallen hunters. They waited until the monster fell asleep, hatched a plan, and managed to return to the village. However, the skeleton tribe's unique practices go far beyond body painting. Their way of life, deeply rooted in cultural traditions, is a symbol of their identity. The tribe celebrates this through vibrant dances, enchanting songs, and rhythmic drumbeats. And speaking of special dances, have you ever heard of the tribe that defies gravity by jumping higher than any other human being? Maasai tribe. Few people haven't heard of them. After all, they are Africa's most famous indigenous tribe. The Maasai are a Nilotic ethnic group that inhabits vast areas of northern, central, and southern Kenya, also extending into northern Tanzania. Due to their historical ties to regions near the Maasai Mara Reserve and the Amboseli region, near the Tanzanian border, they have become the most well-known ethnic group in East Africa. What makes the Maasai unique is their lifestyle, diet. With so many different lifestyles throughout the ages, this tribe continues to attract significant attention. For the Maasai, the dead don't necessarily require traditional burials. Instead, they prefer to leave their dead out in the open for scavengers to devour. According to their beliefs, burying a member of the tribe is harmful to the earth, so they offer their bodies as food for nature. However, the story changes when the deceased is a great chief. Furthermore, the Maasai have a unique system of wealth distribution. Typically, wealth is measured by the number of cattle, wives, and children a man owns. Maasai men can have as many wives as they want, with the goal of producing many children. Everything expands even further when the sons grow up and take over the herd. When the father dies, the sons inherit all his assets. It is each wife's role to build her own house for her children within her husband's village. There is also a hierarchy among wives. The first wife holds more value and power, and her house is always built closest to her husband's. The Maasai are also extremely brave and fearless hunters and warriors. Hunting the king of the jungle is, for them, a simple task, and also the greatest feat a warrior can achieve. Therefore, places like the Serengeti were transformed into national parks and protected areas, and the Maasai tribe was forced to leave these areas to preserve the wildlife. The good news is that this tradition has been replaced since 2008 by the Maasai Olympic Games, a sporting competition to prove masculinity among warriors. This competition involves demonstrating traditional Maasai warrior skills, including running, hunting, cattle herding, and even dancing. The traditional Maasai diet includes meat, blood, milk, fat, honey, and tree bark. They typically drink both fresh and curdled milk. Fresh milk is consumed from gourds and sometimes mixed with freshly collected cattle blood. The way they extract this blood is quite fascinating. During an episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, a guest who has visited the Maasai explained how they achieve this without killing the animals. They carefully extract the blood by shooting an arrow into the ox's neck. After collecting it, they seal the wound with ancient techniques that seem to work like magic, preserving the animal's life. However, drinking blood is not part of their daily routine. In fact, it's a ritualistic tradition, used primarily as a source of nutrition for the sick. Bulls, oxen, and sheep are slaughtered only on special occasions and ceremonies. The Maasai's life revolves around livestock, which is why they rarely sacrifice them. More recently, the Maasai have begun supplementing their diet with agricultural products such as cornmeal, rice, and cabbage, among others. But what fascinates people most is the Maasai's physical appearance. Because of their impressive height, they perform a jumping dance, a fundamental part of their culture. This dance consists of jumping as high as possible without any support. Members of this tribe are known for jumping higher than any other human being, defying gravity and breaking the laws of nature. The Maasai are the tallest people in Africa and also very strong, thanks to their calcium-rich diet. They're the continent's best-known indigenous tribe, studied for years, unlike the next, virtually invisible. But before we move on, here's today's subscriber's pick. Have you heard of the tribe that defies gravity? And no, we're not talking about the Maasai. Unlike them, members of this tribe don't jump through the air. They can walk on walls, as this image shows. According to stories shared on Joe Rogan's podcast, members of this tribe violate all the laws of physics, and no one can explain how. Isolated from the world for thousands of years, this strange clan developed perhaps the most impressive superpower in history. But is this image real? Many people on the internet believe it was manipulated to support fantasy stories that may not be true. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Korowai tribe. Only recently did the world discover the existence of the Korowai tribe. Until the 1970s, there was no record of contact with this fascinating group. The world didn't know they existed, and they didn't know the world existed. Their homes are incredibly tall, reaching 42 meters, 134 feet, in height. Many scientists have tried to explain how they learned to build these structures, but all indications are that this ability is in their DNA. These gigantic structures stand on wooden stilts, accessible only by a rustic ladder. The central pillar is made from a tree known as the banyan tree. The floor and walls are made from the bark of the sago palm. while the roof is made from leaves from the same tree. It wasn't until 1974 that Westerners came into contact with the Korowai, after a group of scientists decided to explore the region. Many members of the tribe dislike welcoming outsiders. They believe these visitors carry demons and evil spirits. And if there's one thing the Korowai fear, it's evil spirits. This is one of the reasons they practiced cannibalism in the past. Because they believed in demonic possession, they felt it necessary to kill and eat a person possessed by a kakawa, an evil spirit. In fact, they are considered the last indigenous tribe to officially abandon cannibalism, and there's more. In episode 1240 of the Joe Rogan Experience, Forrest Galante explained how the Korowai managed to avoid diseases related to cannibalism. Unlike other cultures that suffered from epidemics, the Korowai appear to have developed an immunity to the side effects. Scientists believe this may be because they didn't often consume human flesh, or perhaps it's a result of their spiritual powers. Until the 1970s, the Korowai believed only in witchcraft. They believed demons were real, and that any fatal illness was caused by evil spirits. They don't exactly believe in disease. According to their worldview, all death is caused by spiritual force. One of the main skills that helped these tribes survive for so long in remote regions is their hunting ability. Although their bows and arrows may look like toys at first glance, the Korowai, they've learned to hunt with great efficiency. But they go further. As a highly territorial group, they defend their lands staunchly and don't hesitate to expel unwanted visitors. And do you know who defends their lands to the last drop of blood? Perhaps even more ferociously? The Congo Pygmies. Congo Pygmy tribe. Hidden deep in the African rainforests live a unique people known as pygmies. While the term is now considered offensive, the history of these people, and the name itself, goes far beyond its pejorative use. Ituri Forest in northern Congo. The tallest among them, known as the Mbuti, rarely exceed 1.50 meters in height, which is quite unusual, as they are one of the few tribes in the world to exhibit such reduced height. But besides the Mbuti, there are other important groups of forest peoples scattered throughout Africa. There are the Aka, who live in the Central African Republic and northern Congo, and also the Baka, located in southern Cameroon. Together, these groups number between 130,000 and 170,000 people, and what they lack in stature, they make up for in strength. As hunter-gatherers, pygmies are incredibly strong. Even their average limbs look muscular, despite never having seen a piece of gym equipment. On an episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, a guest spoke about his encounter with these pygmies deep in the rainforest. He mentioned how strong and defined they all look, and how their hunting and gathering lifestyle contributed to this physique. However, their story has a rather sad side. Due to their small size, many cannibalistic tribes see them as easy targets for kidnapping and consumption. Therefore, pygmies are hunted for both their meat and their blood, which is consumed by other groups. But over time, they learn to defend themselves from these predators. They are excellent hunters, especially the men who spend most of their lives in the forest searching for food for their families. They also love honey, which complements the gathering aspect of their lifestyle. Honey is a staple of the pygmy diet. The Mbuti, for example, don't mind climbing up to 30 meters high into the treetops to reach beehives. But unlike other tribes, they don't simply grab honey with their bare hands. Once they reach the hive, they burn wood to produce smoke and stun the bees. This way, they can collect honey uninterrupted. Pygmies aren't the only ones who fear cannibals, however. The next tribe had to literally transform into ghosts to survive, moving through the jungle like creatures from beyond. Indigenous tribe of Papua New Guinea. In Papua New Guinea, a tribe haunts the hearts of their neighbors. Their strange dances, bodies covered in gray clay, and frightening masks have spiritual origins. They are known as the claymen of Asaro. Unlike other tribes that wear vibrant colors inspired by exotic birds, the Asaro are pale and discreet, but they inspire more fear. They are always ready for war, with bows, spears, and clubs in hand. Some members use sharp bamboo as claws. However, unlike other tribes who prepare for battle, the Asaro cover themselves in mud to avoid it. Their intimidating appearance serves as defense. The claymen's terrifying image built a powerful reputation. By inspiring fear, they warded off potential enemies, an ingenious plan with roots in ancient history. About 2 centuries ago, the Asaro were shy and reserved until they were attacked by another tribe. They fled to the Asaro River, where they came up with an unusual way to survive. By covering themselves with white mud, they appeared like ghosts to their enemies, who fled in panic. Realizing the effect, they adopted the technique as a permanent strategy. To enhance their appearance, they created masks from natural materials, leaving their faces bare, believing the river mud was poisonous. Their reputation as supernatural warriors spread quickly. Thus, the Asaro secured peace without further fighting. Other peoples, however, opted for different strategies to survive, such as the Dogon, known for living in the highlands. The Dogon inhabit the Bandiagara escarpment in Mali, a sheer wall of about 500 meters. With villages built into the rocks, they avoid direct contact with the ground and potential invaders. This choice arose over 1,000 years ago, when people fled from conversionists to Islam. The mountains offered safe haven and a defensive advantage. In addition to protection, the nearby Niger River provided access to water. Thus, they settled in the highlands and kept their culture alive despite constant religious persecution. They still suffer from intolerance today, being forced to convert or flee. Yet they preserve unique knowledge, from symbolic systems to astronomy and rudimentary medicine. The Dogon also revere twins, considered divine manifestations. Their rituals, with masks and spiritual dances, reveal a rich spirituality, still preserved in secrecy. Even with occasional contact with the modern world, the Dogon remain one of the most isolated and enigmatic tribes on the planet, much like the clay ghosts of Papua New Guinea. Thanks for watching. See you next time.